In the darkest corner of space, a rescue crew finds a silent child hidden in the wreckage of a destroyed alien ship. No name, no past, just glowing eyes and a warning. They're coming. As a shadowy vessel begins to stalk them through the stars, the crew faces an impossible choice: surrender the girl or defy the force that created her. But she's not just a victim. She's the key to a secret they were never meant to uncover. This is not just a rescue. It's the start of a rebellion. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move to this wonderful story. The stars were quiet, scattered like distant sparks in the dark ocean of space. The rescue ship Aurora Finch floated alone, its hull reflecting the faint light of a dying red sun. Captain Bren Orland stood at the observation deck, arms folded, eyes fixed on a small blinking dot on the screen. They had received a distress signal, faint and broken, coming from an old trade route no one used anymore. Most signals in this area turned out to be debris or echoes from long-dead ships, but this one felt different. "Any updates?" Bren asked, his voice calm but alert. His second-in-command, Lyra Venn, looked up from her console. "Still no ID on the ship, no response, no signs of life, but the signal is active." Bren nodded. "We go in. No one sends a distress call for fun." The crew prepared in silence. They were trained for danger, but none of them liked the feel of this one. The signal had come from a drifting alien freighter, now barely holding together. As the Aurora Finch approached, they could see parts of the ship were torn open. Black scorch marks scarred the hull. There were no lights, no movement, just wreckage floating like frozen tears in space. They docked gently. The airlock hissed open, and the away team stepped into the alien vessel. Bren led the way, his boots making soft thuds on the metal floor. The air smelled like burnt wires and old smoke. Lights flickered overhead, casting shadows that shifted as they moved. "This place is a graveyard," whispered Milo, the ship's engineer, his voice barely above a breath. No one replied. They walked deeper into the freighter, passing rooms that had been crushed or burned. The walls showed signs of a fight: blaster marks, broken panels, smashed control boards. But there were no bodies, no signs of anyone. Just silence. Then a sound reached them, soft, faint, like breathing or crying. The team stopped, every muscle tense. Bren turned toward a sealed door at the end of a narrow hallway. "There," he said, pointing. They approached carefully. Lyra checked her scanner. The metal's bent, door's jammed. Can't get a full reading, but something's alive in there. Bren placed his hand on the door. It was cold. With effort, he forced it open. It groaned loudly, the hinges protesting after too long untouched. Inside, curled in the corner of the room, was a small figure. It was a child, or at least it looked like one. The skin was pale, almost silver, and faint blue lines glowed beneath the surface. Large eyes stared at them, wide with fear. She couldn't have been more than 10 years old. One leg was bent at an unnatural angle. Dark blood dried across her hands and arms. She didn't speak. She didn't cry. She just watched. Lyra knelt carefully. "It's okay," she said softly. "We're here to help." The child tried to move away, but pain stopped her. Bren stepped forward and gently wrapped her in a thermal blanket. "You're safe now," he said. "We've got you." They carried her back through the wreckage, the quiet pressing around them like a weight. Back on the Aurora Finch, the medical bay hummed with life as Dr. Lyra Henley began checking her condition. The child never spoke, never resisted. She just stared at the ceiling, her face blank, unreadable. Then the comm system crackled to life. The black box from the alien ship had finally decrypted its last message. "Unit incomplete. Do not retrieve. Abandoned protocol confirmed. Subject is to be discarded." Everyone froze. The words were cold, emotionless. Not a warning. A command. "Unit?" Lyra asked quietly. "They're talking about her." Bren's jaw tightened. "They left her behind. On purpose." Milo frowned. "Maybe for a reason." She could be dangerous. She's a child, Bren said. Look at her. But what if she isn't? Someone muttered. She's breathing. She's scared. That's enough for me. No one argued after that. Not out loud. Later, as the girl lay on the medical bed, the ship's AI ran a full scan. Biological and mechanical fusion detected, it reported. Implants present, not standard for species. Dr. Henley looked at the results and then back at the child. She's been changed, she said, but I don't know why. Still, the girl remained silent. She hadn't cried when they freed her, not when they cleaned her wounds, not even when her broken leg was gently stabilized. She just lay still like something deep inside her had already given up. Bren stood at her bedside watching her quietly. He had seen a lot in his years. People rescued from war zones, miners trapped under moons, survivors from wrecked colonies. But this girl, there was something different. Not just her body, something in her eyes. A sadness older than she could ever be. He reached out gently, placing a hand near hers. You're not alone anymore, he said. And just for a moment her fingers twitched, like maybe, just maybe, she had heard him. The Aurora Finch drifted quietly through space, a small speck surrounded by stars that offered no comfort. Inside, the crew moved carefully, speaking in low voices as if trying not to wake something sleeping. The girl they had rescued, pale-skinned and silent, remained in the medbay, her leg bound, her small body wrapped in a blanket. She hadn't spoken since they brought her on board. She hadn't cried, hadn't asked for food, hadn't even told them her name. Captain Bren Orland stood outside the medbay's glass window, arms crossed. He watched her lie motionless, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. She didn't blink, much. She didn't look frightened anymore, just empty. Dr. Lyra Henley joined him, holding a tablet in one hand and rubbing her forehead with the other. She's stable, Lyra said, but there's more I need to show you. They stepped into her lab where a 3D model of the girl's body hovered above the table. Bren leaned closer, frowning. Along her spine, small metal nodes were visible. Thin threads extended from them into her nerves and brain. This isn't medical, Lyra said. It's control tech. Whoever did this, they built her for something, maybe surveillance, maybe worse, I don't know. But these implants weren't meant to help her. Bren stared at the image, silent for a long time. Finally, he asked, could they be tracking her? Lyra nodded slowly. It's possible. A quiet alarm sounded in the command room. Lyra Ven's voice crackled through the intercom. Captain, you should see this. Bren walked quickly to the bridge. On the screen, a dark shape floated at the edge of the scanner's range. Sleek, quiet, and silent, it matched no known ship signature. It didn't respond to hails, it didn't make a sound, it just stayed there like a predator watching its prey. Lyra turned to him. It showed up 20 minutes after we left the wreck. It hasn't moved, hasn't attacked, but it's following us. Could be connected to her, Bren said, his voice low. As if hearing them, the girl appeared at the doorway of the command room. She moved slowly, dragging her bad leg slightly, still wrapped in the blanket. Her eyes focused on the screen, and her face turned pale, paler than before. They're here, she whispered. Bren stepped closer. Who are they? The girl didn't answer. Her breathing sped up. She gripped the wall like the air had suddenly become heavy. They followed. You because of her, Lyra said quietly from behind. Bren looked at the girl, searching for some clue, some truth. Can you talk to us? Please tell us who you are. The girl shook her head. I don't know. You don't remember? Lyra asked gently. I remember numbers, the girl said. Not names. Bren crouched down to her level. Then tell us the number. 19, she said. There was silence. That's what they called me, she added, her voice thin. Not a name, just that. We're not going to call you that, Bren said firmly. You're not a number. The girl looked confused, as if the idea itself was strange. Milo stepped forward from the back of the room. We should think about what we're doing. If that ship is here for her, maybe we should let them take her." "No," Bren said at once. "She might be dangerous," Milo insisted. "We don't know what's inside her. What if she's some kind of weapon?" "She's a child," Lyra said. "She's something else too," Milo shot back. "Even if that's true," Bren said, his voice calm but strong. "She asked for help. That means something." The girl looked between them, unsure what to make of the argument. She stepped closer to the console and stared at the ship outside. "They don't like failure," she whispered. "Failure?" Bren asked. "I didn't obey. They couldn't make me," she said. "So they left me behind." Lyra's eyes widened. "That's why they abandoned the ship," the girl nodded. "I was the test, the project. But something went wrong. I started thinking for myself." The lights on the bridge flickered suddenly. The ship's systems buzzed. Screens flashed random symbols and then returned to normal. Lyra checked the controls. "Systems are glitching. We're getting interference. Inside the ship." The girl backed away, clutching her head. "It's me," she said through gritted teeth. "They're using me." Bren stepped forward. "Can you stop it?" "I can try," she said, "but I don't know how long I can hold them off." She moved back toward the medbay, her small body shaking. Bren followed her, his face full of worry. "Why would they want you back so badly?" "They don't," she whispered. "They want to erase me. If I stay, they'll destroy everything to make sure I don't survive." There was silence again, heavy and cold. "You're not going anywhere," Bren said. "We'll protect you." "Why?" she asked. "Because you're not a machine. You're not a weapon. You're someone." For the first time, something flickered in her expression. Not fear, not confusion. Something like hope. "I don't have a name," she said softly. Lyra smiled from nearby. "How about Rinna? It means new dawn." The girl repeated it quietly. "Rinna." She looked at Bren again. "Do I really get to choose who I am?" He nodded. "Starting now." Outside, the enemy ship waited in silence. But inside the Aurora Finch, a new story had just begun. Rinna sat alone in the quiet of the medbay, her legs swinging gently off the edge of the bed. The room buzzed softly with the hum of machines, but she hardly noticed. Her fingers traced the seams of the blanket wrapped around her shoulders, and her eyes stayed fixed on nothing in particular. Though the ship had been peaceful since she'd helped stop the interference earlier, the tension in the air hadn't gone away. She could still feel them, out there in the dark, waiting. Across the hall, Captain Bren Orlin watched her through the open door. He had been checking in on her often, but always gave her space. Something about this girl made him feel responsible in a way he didn't fully understand. She was quiet, observant, and too calm for someone her age. But beneath that calm, there was something else. Not anger, not fear. Something harder to name. Engineer Tom Vale arrived with a small toolkit in one hand and a steaming mug in the other. He handed the drink to Bren and nodded toward the girl. "She's been sitting like that for hours." "She's thinking," Bren said, "trying to figure out what comes next. Can she really fight off a ship like that? Just with her mind?" "I don't know," Bren admitted, "but she already did once." Inside the medbay, Dr. Lyra Henley ran another scan. Rinna didn't flinch when the machine passed over her. She barely blinked as the lights lit up above her head. "The implants are still active," Lyra said. "But I've noticed something strange. They're no longer trying to send out signals. It's like she shut them down from the inside." Rinna turned her head slightly. "They can't hear me anymore for now." "Does it hurt?" Lyra asked. "Sometimes," Rinna replied. "When I fight them. But the silence hurts less." Lyra sat beside her. "Do you remember where you came from? A place? A face?" Rinna shook her head. "Only training rooms. Voices giving orders. Cold lights. No one ever smiled." "You were always called number 19? That's all they used. Just the number. I didn't get to choose anything. Tom entered the medbay quietly and leaned against the wall. Well, you've got a name now, he said. Rina. And names have power. They remind us we're not just part of someone else's system. Rina looked down at her hands. They were small, but strong. Stronger than they should be. She had always known she was different from the others in her group. They had followed orders without question. She had asked why. And then the punishment started. They said I was broken, she said softly, that I didn't belong in the program. Bren joined them. You weren't broken. You were aware. That's what scared them. I used to think I was the only one like me, Rina continued. But I heard things, whispers in the walls. There were others who began to question. They disappeared. Lyra exchanged a look with Bren. You think they're still out there? I don't know, Rina said, but I think I wasn't the first. Before anyone could speak again, the lights flickered once more. The ship's systems paused just for a heartbeat and then resumed. Lyra's voice called over the intercom. Captain, you need to get to the bridge, now. Bren rushed out, followed by Tom. On the screen, the dark vessel was closer now, its shadow looming larger than before. No signals, no words, just steady, silent pressure. They're done waiting, Lyra said. They know she's fighting. Back. An incoming signal suddenly lit up the console. Encrypted. Directed straight at Rina. Put it through. Bren ordered. The voice that came through was cold, flat, and inhuman. Unit 19. This is your final command. Return for deconstruction. Your usefulness has ended. Do not resist. The message ended. Silence returned. Back in the medbay, Rina had stood up. She hadn't moved much since they brought her on board, but now she looked taller, stronger. Her eyes glowed faintly, the blue lines under her skin pulsing like they were alive. They won't stop, she said. Even if you run, they'll follow. Bren returned, looking at her with calm determination. Then we stop running. You don't even know what I am, Rina said, her voice a mix of fear and frustration. We don't have to, Bren replied. You asked for help, that's enough. Rina looked around at the crew who had gathered behind him. Lyra, Tom, Lyra, and the others. No one backed away. No one reached for a weapon. They just stood there, choosing her. They built. Me for control, Rina said. To follow, to obey, but I'm not one of them. No, you're not, Lyra said. You're more. The lights flickered again, but this time Rina raised her hand and placed it on the nearest control panel. The flickering stopped. The light steadied. She was learning to push back. You stabilized us, Lyra said, amazed. You're connected to them, but you can block it. I think I can do more, Rina said. If I can reach their systems, maybe I can confuse them. Maybe long enough for you to escape. Bren stepped forward. We're not leaving you behind. I'm not asking you to, she said, but I won't let them hurt anyone else. A long silence followed. Then finally, Bren nodded. Then let's make a plan. Together. Rina didn't smile, but something in her eyes softened. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about choice. And for the first time, she wasn't number 19. She was Rina. And she was ready. The Aurora Finch floated in silence, surrounded by stars that no longer seemed peaceful. Inside, the crew worked without speaking much, their focus drawn tightly to the dark ship outside their window. It hadn't moved closer, but everyone knew it was only a matter of time. The enemy wasn't in a hurry. They were waiting for the crew to make a decision, to give up the girl, to hand her over and save themselves. But the crew of the Aurora Finch had already made their choice. They just hadn't said it out loud yet. Captain Bren Orland stood at the main console, his jaw tight as he stared at the screen. The enemy vessel hovered just beyond their weapon range, still not responding to hails, still keeping its distance like a wolf watching a campfire. He could feel the tension running through his ship like a second heartbeat. They were low on energy. Their weapons were basic. Their shields wouldn't last long in a real fight, and yet he wasn't ready to give in. Behind him, Rinna sat in the corner of the command room. Her small frame looked even smaller compared to the equipment around her, but there was nothing small about her presence now. She wasn't the same, silent, frightened child they'd found in that wrecked ship. Her eyes were sharp, aware, and calm. She knew what was coming. She had always known. Lyra, the ship's second-in-command, glanced over at her. "They haven't fired. Why are they waiting?" "They're giving us time," Rinna said softly. "They want you to be the ones to make the choice." "Give you up," Lyra said quietly. "Or die." "They always do it like that," Rinna replied. "They don't want to look like monsters. They make others decide." Tom Vale, the engineer, leaned against the wall, arms crossed. "Cowards. They think it's easier to erase someone if no one fights for them," Rinna said. Bren turned away from the screen. "Well, they're wrong." The room went still. "We're not handing you over," he said. "Not now. Not ever." "But you don't even know what I am," Rinna replied. "I was built by them. Changed. Programmed. I don't even know how. Much of me is still real." Bren stepped forward and knelt beside her. "We don't have to understand everything about you to know one thing. You deserve to live. You deserve a chance." Rinna's voice trembled just slightly. "What if they come after us forever? Then we keep running. We keep fighting. Together." Rinna looked up at him. "You would really do that?" "Yes," Bren said simply. "Because you're not their tool anymore. You're your own person. That's what scares them." Suddenly the ship's lights dimmed. A warning flashed on the console. Another signal. This one was different, stronger. Not just a message. It was trying to enter their systems again. "It's targeting Rinna," Lyra said. "Trying to take control again." Rinna stood, walking toward the console. "I can stop it." "Are you sure?" Lyra Henley, the medic, asked from the medbay screen. "It could hurt you." Rinna took a deep breath. "I don't want to run anymore." She reached out and placed her hand on the main screen. For a moment nothing happened. Then the screen flickered. The ship shook. Sparks flew from a nearby panel. "Rinna!" Bren shouted, stepping forward. But she didn't fall. Her hand stayed, pressed against the screen, her eyes glowing brighter than before. The blue lines under her skin pulsed like a rhythm, steady and calm. The lights on the ship flickered one last time, and then everything went quiet. The enemy ship stopped moving. "Systems are stable," Lyra said, checking the readings. "They're not trying to break in anymore." Rinna opened her eyes slowly. "I broke the link." "You mean they can't control you anymore?" Tom asked. "They can't even find me now," she said. "I turned off the signal inside me." Bren exhaled, relieved. "You did it." Rinna sat down, exhausted. "But they won't stop. They'll send others. Then we stay ahead of them," Lyra said. "We're not easy to catch." Outside the window, the enemy ship remained still. Then, without warning, it turned and vanished into the stars. No attack, no message, just gone. The crew stared at the screen in disbelief. "They gave up?" Tom asked. "Maybe they didn't want to face someone who wouldn't bow down anymore," Bren said. Rinna looked out the window, her voice barely a whisper. "They'll come back." "Then let them," Bren replied. "Next time we'll be ready." In the days that followed, the crew adjusted their course. They set a path into uncharted space, away from the known paths and easy trails. They didn't know what they would find, but they knew they would face it together. Rinna spent more time with the crew now. She helped Tom with repairs. She listened to Lyra tell stories from her early days as a medic. She even laughed once, just a little, but enough for everyone to hear. Late one night, Bren found her sitting, in the observation room, staring at the stars. "Could you ever forgive them?" he asked quietly. She shook her head. "I don't think I need to. I just need to live." "That's enough," Bren said. Rinna nodded. "Thank you," for giving me a future. You gave it to yourself, he said. We just gave you the chance. Outside, the stars stretched on forever, filled with danger, wonder, and unknown stories. Rinna sat quietly, not as a number, not as a project, but as a person. She had no past she wanted to return to, but now she had something else. Choice, freedom, and a name that belonged to her alone. And somewhere in that vast sky, maybe others like her were waiting. Maybe she wasn't the only one. But for now, Rinna was safe, and that was a start.